All right, let's start with Vanderbilt and Florida. Vanderbilt beats Florida 31-24. 1 week after we were really giving a lot of props to Florida for the way they demolished South Carolina. More on that later.
Right.
Vanderbilt got their fifth win of the season, their second SEC win.
Yeah.
Well, man, what happened here?
Who knows? I have no earthly idea. Anthony Richardson for Florida, he threw for 3 touchdowns and 400 yards, and they lost the game to Vanderbilt. Like, no, none of it makes sense. You'll never comprehend it. Vanderbilt threw for 108 yards, 400 to 108, almost 4x the passing yards. But Vanderbilt wins. There was a special teams touchdown in there. Florida was sloppy. You don't want to go and say that you can just chalk it up to being a first-year head coach. Kirby Smart also lost to Vanderbilt in his first year, and Georgia wasn't very good. Like, obviously, that's turning out well. But it does feel that it may not be implications for this year, but this will have implications for Florida's coach, Billy Napier, in years to come. Like when they're looking back for data points and reference, like, is he doing a good job or not? You'll always be able to point to the 2022 Vanderbilt game where you lost and you were clearly the better team. Like, Florida is always the more talented team, and they couldn't run the ball, and they didn't really stop the run. Like, yeah, it was an opportunistic Vanderbilt team, which is really the only way that Vanderbilt can win. And I like this. Vanderbilt actually rushed the field afterwards, but they did it neatly in single file. They were ushered out. They were ushered out of the stands and onto the field. It took a really long time, and I don't think they got everyone on there. But rushing the field as only Vanderbilt really could. You know what I mean?
That's great. That's good stuff. Just the fact that they are going into the final week of the year with a chance of going bowling is
Yes.
incredible. Are you still ready to fire Clark Lee?
No. Okay. Hang on. The chance. Okay, I had the over for them too on this
Right.
season. The
Yes, you
season
did.
win total, and yeah, covered easily. I was not sold on him, but for Vanderbilt to win, this is how they have to do it. Like, you have to you
Yeah.
have to be opportunistic. You have to not make mistakes, and you have to seriously capitalize on any possible mistakes that your opponent might make.
Yeah.
This is how you do it, and you get outgained, but it doesn't really matter. So, no, props to them. They were well coached. They out schemed Florida, and they out coached them. Like, overall, that was just a thorough out coaching job from Clark Lee and Vanderbilt. So no, he back-to-back wins for Vanderbilt, and they have a chance if they beat Tennessee. I mean, how crazy is that? That's 3 straight SEC wins in a row. They would be 6-6. They would go bowling. Probably not going to happen, but that line is actually sneaky close. So I'm just saying, it's looking up for Vanderbilt right now.
That's right. Okay, TCU was down against Baylor. Their playoff hopes just holding on by a thread. They rush onto the field and kick a game-winning field goal as time expired. They win 29-28. Ashton,
Yep.
what did you think about this game? Were you able to catch a lot of it?
A bit, yeah, especially towards the end, when it kept getting close. TCU was one of my locks at 3. I felt actually pretty confident even throughout the game. I always felt like they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Literally last second field goal with no timeout, and it was 4th down, so you couldn't spike the ball. So the
Yeah.
clock's just ticking down, and they have to go full on fire drill, get all our offense, all the kicking, all the special teams unit on, and they snapped the ball with like 3 or 4 seconds left. And it was
Yeah.
like, I was just sitting there. I'm not a TCU fan. I don't have a dog in the fight. I mean, my cover was long lost. I wasn't going to win that one. But I was just like, oh my goodness, like, playoffs, man. This is the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're TCU, and this is the playoffs. And it comes down to that, really. And at the end, Sonny Dykes was like, yeah, like, it was like a little sketchy. It was like, oh, buddy, like, I don't, you do not understand what, like, we just have different definitions of what sketchy really is, I guess. But yeah, hey, good for them. The Horned Frogs, on a week where a lot of teams, playoff caliber teams, did not make it through. TCU Horned Frogs continue their unbeaten streak, currently a playoff team if the season ended today. Good for them. A win's a win, right?
That's right. Yeah. Honestly, just talking about the way that they made that last field goal. You mentioned, I mean, sprinting onto the field, The kicker
Yes.
didn't even like step it off at all. He just like
Oh, I know.
stood in the spot
Oh,
where he thought he might supposed to be. Like just basically guessed at where he's supposed to be standing, and he nailed it. I mean, it looked like they had practiced that a lot. It was all beautifully done. They didn't even have time to step it off, and they still made the field goal. I don't think people realize like that's got to be actually pretty difficult, and they pulled it off, made it look almost easy in a way.
I- nothing about it looked easy to me.
Well,
I mean,
okay.
I'm glad that it looked. The result looked easy, but yeah, I mean, completely winging it. Like the kicker, he just kind of like, I think this is probably where I'm. Oh, and there's the ball, and go. Okay,
Yep.
and oh, it went in, and was like, oh my goodness. It's one of those things where I was watching with no volume, and like I didn't listen. I wasn't listening to the announcers at the time, and it was just like, like there's no time. Like you're just sitting there, just getting nervous for him. Again, don't have a dog in the fight, but like guys, the playoffs. But the playoffs. That's all I could think about at the time. You can't blow this. Good for them. Good for the Horned Frogs.
Absolutely. All right, another playoff team potentially that escaped. Michigan beats Illinois 19-17. Some questionable officiating. I'm not going to get caught up in it. I wasn't watching the whole thing,
Yeah,
but they managed to escape. I mean, we say winning is all that matters. Obviously, I think it's pretty clear that they were looking ahead to the game against Ohio State. Is that fair to say?
maybe I guess. Yeah, whatever. Like
Or did Illinois just play
like,
well and Michigan's not that good? Or what?
Illinois, no, some of both. No. I mean, I think Michigan's good. They're a
Yeah.
deserved top 4 team right now. Not saying that. I think Illinois under Bielema is physical. Like they're a handful, especially in the cold, not great conditions. They're going to come at you, try to just hit you in the mouth and run the ball and play good defense. That's always what Bielema's done, no matter where he's been, or Arkansas or Wisconsin, wherever he's coached. That's his calling card, right? And good for them. That's what Illinois does, and they're very respectable, no doubt. But yeah, I expected more from Michigan. Another late field goal to take the lead. And we also learned that offensive pass interference just doesn't really get called in the Big Ten, especially on 4th downs, and especially if it's Michigan doing it. So Bielema did. It's you have to be really careful, but I think he's kind of perfecting the thing where I didn't say it, but like I liked a tweet that said that the refs,
Right.
like he liked a tweet of a video, just of it was a clear pick from the Michigan receiver on a 4th down late in the game, and it probably would have iced the game for Illinois. But yeah, he's not going to get fined for it. Good for him. It's an art. I like that art form.
Right. So Blake Corum went out with an injury.
Yes.
I think people are saying he's probably going to play. Any concern there for Michigan because they've been riding him so hard? Like he basically has become their offense.
They have others. Like that is important to note. They have others,
But Donovan Edwards is out too, and he was kind of the main number 2 guy.
Fair. No, fair enough. No, Corum is definitely. I mean, he's a Heisman contender still at this point, this late in the season, with a big game against Ohio State. Could win the Heisman if he finishes strong. So like his stats are very comparable to like Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, like in their Heisman winning years. So he's not getting much buzz for it now, but he could here in a little bit. But one thing I did notice is that like he was back on the field, like he wasn't like in a walking boot or anything. He was suited up again. I think he's going to be fine. Like it's hard to know. It's really hard to know. And like, would Michigan even tell us if he wasn't going to be fine? No, like probably not. But just from sitting there watching the game, like you feel like he'll probably be back. Like he has to be. Like if there's any chance that he can like walk, like they'll shoot him up with enough painkillers to get him out there. So
yeah. Okay, yet another team in the top 4 that struggled a bit. Ohio State beat Maryland 43-30. Maryland had the ball deep in their own territory with about a minute to go, and then there was I don't know if it was officially ruled a fumble return for a touchdown or an interception return for a touchdown by Ohio State, but they managed to win by 2 scores. I don't know that it ever really felt like Ohio State was in serious danger, but like they definitely let Maryland hang around a lot more than they would have liked. Do you have any takeaways from this game?
We mentioned people in walking boots. Travion Henderson, the running back for Ohio State, actually was in a walking boot at the end of that one, so he got dinged up pretty good. The freshman Hayden came in, like he ran the ball well. I'm not saying that. But C.J. Stroud also limping around. Like, yeah, Ohio State didn't look good. The final score is a little deceiving. If you just go look at the box score, it's like, 13 points on the road, but no big deal. Maryland had a chance to drive to win that game with like a minute left. They were never going to, but they had the chance. They had an opportunity. Michigan and Ohio State probably both looked over past this week's games onto the game against like the big game next week. They probably did. There's probably some of that. Part of it, Maryland and Illinois are good teams and can kind of sneak up on you when you're not prepared for something like that. So yeah, credit to Ohio State. In the end, you won the game. You won by 2 scores. You're fine. You're just hoping to get guys healthy for next week, pretty much. The injuries to Ohio State, I would say, would maybe be a little more concerning than the injuries to Michigan at this point.
Well, completing the theme of top 4 teams in the country all struggling in close wins Saturday. Georgia beat Kentucky 16-6. I don't know. There's a lot to take away from this. You're the resident Georgia fan. What did you see in this game?
This was, I don't know. Final score was also deceiving. Like, Georgia completely controlled the game until they didn't way late in the game. But yeah, Will Levis is not the guy that's going to beat you. Like, he's not going to beat that defense. Kentucky pretty much just took all the air out of the ball early on in the first half. Georgia only had 3 possessions. They kicked 3 field goals and drove, like, they never really punted in the first half. But they didn't convert in the red zone. The game, if you play this game 10 times, Georgia blows out Kentucky, probably like 7 or 8 of them. And this just was one of the times where it was close. But it was a convincing 2-score win, against a tough team on the road. Like, it's kind of what everyone went through this week. You managed to win, and you were definitely the better team there. Like, it wasn't nothing fluky about that win. So I'm fine. Like, everyone's healthy. Jalen Carter's back on the defensive line and playing really, really well for Georgia. So as a Georgia fan, I'm feeling good. Like, we're gonna go play Georgia Tech and then play LSU. Yeah, and probably go to the playoff if you take care of business there. So I'm good. Like, I'm good with where we're at. It red zone offense, a little disappointing. I think it hasn't. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I really think that will be fine.
Right. Okay, at a game that I'm guessing neither one of us watched at all, Iowa beat Minnesota 13-10. We knew going in it was going to be just a defensive slugfest. I would assume, based on the score, that's probably what happened. Any takeaways from Iowa beating Minnesota 13-10 and kind of not clinching the Big Ten West, but sort of putting themselves in clear front-running position to repeat as Big Ten West champs?
The Big Ten West as a whole. So there's a lot of teams at 7-4 now. There's 4 teams at 7-4. If I'm looking at that right, looking at the standings now. Iowa with a win next week gets to go to the conference championship game. They get to win the West and represent in the Big Ten. Yeah, Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota also 7-4. Did I watch it? No, I really didn't. I'm sorry. Wasn't this one where the over-under was like the point total was like at 32? Like something just ridiculously low, and like we were laughing at it, like, oh, we should probably take the under on that because, that's obviously going to just be a absolute slugfest. 13-10. Yeah, I guess we got what we paid for with that one. So is Iowa any good at all? Like, is there anything to being able just to hold teams to low point totals? Like, how about this? Let me just rephrase. Is Kirk Ferentz fine? Is his job secure?
Yes, I think Kirk Ferentz's job is secure. I still think Brian Ferentz is he's got to leave.
He's not going to do it. Not going to do it.
I think it's going to happen. I think my prediction is that Brian Ferentz is gone after the year.
Yeah.
The offensive coordinator, for those that are not sure. But, yeah, by the way, like you mentioned that we didn't watch this game. The fact is, we have watched Iowa and Minnesota enough this year. We absolutely did watch this game because every Iowa game is exactly the same. And Minnesota has a little more variance, but we kind of know who they are too. They're sort of like Iowa, maybe a bit more volatility. Their highs are maybe a little higher, their lows a little lower. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Minnesota ran the ball for 312 yards.
Wow.
Iowa ran the ball for 59. Just throwing that out there. Iowa won 13-10. Make it make sense. You won't. Not for me. I don't know. Ibrahim for Minnesota, by the way. He's a beast. He ran for 263 and a touchdown. You hate to lose a game. You hate to lose a game where you dominate them in rushing like that.
That's crazy. That is crazy. By the way, Spencer Petras had over 200 passing yards on 9.2 yards per attempt, which is astonishing. Like, is that the most astonishing passing line of the day? Sorry, we'll get to that later. But
yeah, well, let's wait until we get to South Carolina, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's okay. That was enough Iowa Minnesota talk. We'll move on.
There we go.
Georgia Tech upset North Carolina 21-17. North Carolina probably the lowest ranked team that still had an outside shot at the playoff. That's gone now. Georgia Tech seems like they're playing a little better under the interim Brent Key. And North Carolina, I mean, you can give props to Georgia Tech and also realize, you kind of have to fault North Carolina for this. He scored 17 points against Georgia Tech's defense. What is that?
Yeah, all in the first half too for North Carolina. Drake May lost the Heisman Trophy, or any chance he had at it. He's not going to be getting that trophy this year with this performance. Wasn't totally all his fault. He had a late fourth quarter. Well, it was a fourth down pass in the fourth quarter. Would have been a go ahead touchdown. That was just dropped. Plain dropped in the end zone. So yeah, you feel bad.
By Josh Downs, by the way.
Right. Who's such a good receiver overall. We're big Josh Downs guy, or at least I am. Yep. And yeah, think that he's going to be a good pro. And that's just not a play that happens to him very much. So Georgia Tech, they're frisky. Georgia Tech they're a frisky team under the interim coach. Any chance that guy just gets the full-time gig? He's been kind of rumored. It's like maybe he might, but they're definitely fighting. That program is definitely showing up for him. Kind of the same as like what Auburn's doing with Cadillac Williams a little bit. Like they're just showing up and they're at least fighting. And maybe we're not the most skilled, but we're gonna show up and we're gonna really go for it for 4 quarters. So yeah, good for Georgia Tech. They have Georgia this week. That'll be fun. Yeah. They're gonna that could be a bloodbath there though.
There is, just to answer your question, I think there's some whispers out there that maybe Georgia Tech is a little low on cash at the moment.
Sure.
And so he would be the cheap option, like if you're trying to save some money for several years.
Yeah.
And, pay off the buyouts and then maybe hire a bigger name guy in a couple years. I guess I could see that. I also feel like that's a really tough sell, like for your fan base and your boosters. Like you might see even less cash coming in if that's the route you choose to take. I don't know. Then again, if they're playing this hard for him, maybe it's the right decision.
Yeah, you're either a football program or you're not. Like I think you have to be careful in these times. It's kind of like the arm race of money right now for like college football. Yeah, you want to be careful not to get too many levels down because you're not going to be able to get back up again. So yeah, Georgia Tech needs to get good and soon because the rivalry between them and Georgia is not even fun anymore.
Yeah, that's actually a really great analogy. I mean, if you study World War I history at all, you just the weaponry that had come along. I mean, at the beginning of World War I, you have whole regiments like not even wearing metal helmets and stuff, and they're going against ridiculous artillery. And it's just that, if you want to hang around in college football, you need to step up to the arms race. You need to spend. And so, huge offseason coming up for Georgia Tech. Not saying that they can't win with Brent Key, just saying that you need to invest in your program as a whole.
Right.
So part of that is assistant coaches and all of that. We saw that with Duke this last offseason. They paid their assistant coaches. I think they're like 3rd or 4th in the ACC now. And look, Duke had the best year they've had in a long time. They had a really good football year. I'm just saying. Just saying, spending matters.
It does. Huge.
All right, South Carolina, Tennessee. This game, I don't know that we have a more astonishing result to me this entire season. Now, Ashton, you took South Carolina, I think plus 22 as your one of your locks of the week. I was on the other side. I took Tennessee to cover 3 touchdowns. Well done by you. The spread was wrong by 6 touchdowns. What happened?
Well, so I don't want to come on here and just act like holier than thou, and I clearly saw this coming, but you really could kind of see it coming. Like Tennessee is a very talented football team. There's no doubt. Hendon Hooker and the receivers that they have are incredible, and it looks awesome. It does. They're good. Tennessee's legit good this year. But there is a thing of the talent, the depth. Like, how much depth do you have late in the year on the road? Like, do you have the dudes down the depth chart? Like what are your second, third stringers, fourth stringers? How do they match up? And do you have the ability to take everyone's best shot and still be on top? It's hard to do. It's hard to do what Ohio State does in Michigan, in Alabama, in Georgia. That's really difficult to do. Tennessee's finding out how difficult it is to do, because that stadium was rambunctious. Like, from the opening kick, that place was awesome. South Carolina, the offense could not be stopped. Like, it's when you have a something that was this wild. 63 points is a lot for anybody to put up. And Tennessee actually had a pretty good defense. I think they were top 15, like, overall. And for this to happen, it's just like, yeah, that was South Carolina playing really well, and Tennessee's defense, like, almost quitting. Like, Tennessee's defense had pretty much stopped playing. Spencer Rattler threw for 438 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks. He had 6 touchdowns, only 7 incompletions. He was spinning it like that. That's what we wanted. That's what we thought we were getting, like, from him the whole time, really. Like, when he's the 5-star, just like 15 months ago, this guy was the number 1 overall projected pick for an NFL draft overall. Like, this guy was a Heisman front runner, the whole thing. And nights like that kind of remind us why. Like, he has the arm talent, and when they want to come out and just be aggressive, they have some really good playmakers down the field to throw the ball to. I think that really surprised Tennessee. And then the whole thing just kind of snowballed on them, and Tennessee they don't have the talent in their depth chart to really stop something from snowballing. Like, that's a game where Alabama or Georgia finds a way to get out of there with a 3-point win. And everyone talks about, like, oh, is Georgia bad? You know what I mean? Like, is Georgia a little overrated? Like, they struggled with South Carolina. This is what happens when you're not Georgia or Ohio State or whoever. You kind of get steamrolled. Like, sometimes those nights just happen. So I was really impressed with South Carolina. Tennessee, not really unimpressed with Tennessee. I guess that's kind of who I thought they were the whole time. Like, I thought they were maybe a little overinflated because they had a good offense. I think that's kind of what happens when you have a good offense. You get just, like, too much love. Like, everyone just thinks, oh, they're so fun. And yeah, turns out you really need to be able to get pressure and be disruptive on defense. And Tennessee's not right now.
So you said a lot of things about Tennessee not being all that legit. To me, personally, the bigger story is South Carolina. Coming into this game, South Carolina, their previous high points scored in SEC play was 38 against Vanderbilt. Coming into this game, Spencer Rattler had 8 touchdown passes in 10 games. And 9 interceptions. 6 against Tennessee, the number 5 team in the country. So you can say all these things about, that's what's going to happen to you if you're not actually that deep. What about the flip side? What about South Carolina? Why did it take until game 11 for them to have this kind of... They had some good performances against terrible teams. Charlotte, South Carolina State.
Sure.
But why did it take until game 11 for this to happen against a decent opponent? I mean, they lost to Missouri. They scored 10 points against Mizzou. They scored 6 against Florida a week earlier. 6.
7 days before. Yeah.
What? How do you explain the South Carolina side of it?
I don't think you really can. Like the only thing that I really have to offer is the fact that South Carolina had been straight up neglecting their best players on offense, their playmakers. Jaheim Bell he's a tight end for them. He played running back in this game, where it's pretty much like, we just have to get him the ball. DK Joyner, he played some wildcat quarterback, ran for 2 touchdowns. That's a guy that's really, really talented, but almost all year, he would barely even get snaps. Like, he would barely even get on the field. Super talented guy. Down to, like, Josh Van, the receiver, is a legit guy at receiver. He's a ball player. And 2 touchdowns for him. Juice Wells, like they finally, I think they just enabled they had no choice. I think they had no choice. They knew they had to put up points and like, hey, we're just going to go out swinging. Like we're just going to go and just get the ball to our best guys. And if we lose, so what? Like we have zero things to lose here. Let's just go and try to win. And yeah, and it worked. And then it kept working. And they're like, well, shoot, we'll just keep kind of running the same play and the same play again. And Tennessee never stopped it. Like they ran one play, it was like 3 or 4 times in a row, whereas, yeah, it was wide open every single time. So, no, it's good for them. I don't know if this will be enough for Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for South Carolina, to keep his job. I don't. I still think he'll get fired. But man, they have one more game against Clemson. And if they have any kind of South Carolina Clemson next week, must see TV. That's going to be a lot of fun. South Carolina is proving to you they have dudes. Like they've got some legit NFL players. Like Cam Smith, like the corner, I thought he played really well, shadowing kind of Jalen Hyatt, just all over the place. That's what you have to do. Stay on top of Tennessee, make them make long, sustained drives. And it's hard to do. Can we talk about Hendon Hooker? Like
I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely.
The injury there was, no one wants to see that. Like it was a non-contact injury. Like it's been reported since that he tore his ACL. He's a good kid. Like of all the guys out there, he's the one that you don't really want to see that happen to. You don't want to see it happen to anyone, but him especially, I guess. He's an older quarterback. I think he's 25 years old. I just hope he recovers and gets a shot at the NFL, because if he hadn't, like, I think he was definitely going up on the draft boards. There's a chance he would have won the Heisman this year. It's you feel really bad for him. As his career at Tennessee is probably over.
Right. Yeah, feel bad for the guy. It was legitimately a pleasure to watch him play. And I know it's disappointing, like Tennessee's not going to the playoff. It's disappointing for them. But the fact is, we still saw some incredible football from them, like that we haven't seen from Tennessee in a long time. I kind of view them a little bit the same way as I view like 07 Oregon with Dennis Dixon, another quarterback who had a terrible injury that ended his season, who was also kind of a Heisman frontrunner. So I guess maybe Tennessee wasn't 2019 LSU. Maybe they were 2007 Oregon. And there's still something fun about that team that you'll always remember, even if you didn't ultimately get where you wanted to go.
But we can we can lay the 2019 LSU comparisons to rest with Tennessee. It's confirmed. 2019 LSU, they never gave up 63 points to anybody. So good for them. I was quite okay seeing it. I'll be honest. I really enjoyed watching this game. I've been going back and forth.
Shocking from a Georgia fan, yeah.
Well, fair enough. But I've been going back and forth with Tennessee Twitter for the last 3-4 weeks. It's a nightmarish place to be, man. Those guys are active on Twitter. Do not make them mad. Yeah. However, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I took some shots. I took some shots back at him Saturday night, Sunday morning. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, Arkansas beat Ole Miss 42-27 in a game that was not that close. I was wrong in this game. I assumed Ole Miss would probably win. I don't know what happened. What did you see? What do you take away from this game?
Lane Kiffin's already getting a coaching staff for Auburn. That's what I took from it. I mean, truthfully, like we know Arkansas is going to be physical. Like they're going to run. KJ Jefferson playing is really good. Like it turns out that actually works out pretty well for Arkansas. But yeah, I mean, this was a bloodbath. Like the game was over at halftime. So yeah, I think, Rocket Sanders is really good. KJ Jefferson, really good. Arkansas is well coached, but Lane Kiffin has one foot out the door. I do not think that. I would be shocked if he would stay at Ole Miss, especially after the last 2 weeks.
Right. Okay, huge game in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is still alive. We can report that for the college football playoff. USC beat UCLA 48-45, and it was just as fun as that score suggests. Both offenses basically unstoppable, at least when UCLA was not throwing interceptions. I think they threw 3 in this game, still scored 45 points. Caleb Williams played out of his mind, played so well. This USC offense is really good. Yeah, what can you say? What do you take away from this game, Ashton?
The fact that USC held Charbonnet to under 100 yards is stunning. I think that's stunning because that's where that's really what we thought would like be kind of the weak spot of the USC defense, was not being able to stop the run. And Charbonnet's a physical runner. UCLA has a good offensive line, and they run on people. Like that's kind of what they do. Seeing them shut down Charbonnet, not shut him down, but slow him down, contain him, that was, I think, the most surprising thing. USC is, especially with the Tennessee loss, they're in prime position right now to still be a playoff team, which is, I wasn't high on USC going into the year, and there's no doubt that they've surprised. They've really surprised people just with the depth that it takes to continue winning. UCLA is a good football team, and you beat them at their place. I know it's not much of a home field advantage, but it's still their place. Shootout, kind of like what we all thought it was going to be, but USC comes out on top. Tricky game next week against Notre Dame. To win, to go to the Pac-12 championship. I still think USC will lose one. I think I don't know if it's to Oregon or to Notre Dame. I guess they're probably going to play Oregon with Oregon's win, but I think they're going to lose one of those two. I don't think they'll go undefeated and make the playoff, but it's still surprising that they've made it this far.
Well, they have the one loss to Utah. The question is, can they make it with that one loss?
If they go undefeated from here out, they will. With Tennessee's loss, USC will get in if they win out and win the Pac-12. I think they will. They're already at 7. I think they'll be in. I don't think they'll win out, though, I guess is what I'm saying.
It would be very interesting if it comes down to 12-1 USC against 12-1 Clemson.
Fair.
That would be fun. Okay. One last game to talk about. Oregon beats Utah 20-17, another Pac-12 game. I didn't quite catch all of this game. Caught a little bit. What do you take away? Obviously, you mentioned Oregon probably going to play in the Pac-12 championship game. I haven't actually looked up to see if that's settled. They're pretty good, I think. What do you think?
No, I think so as well. I think they're a good team. I will say of first year head coaches, Dan Lanning has done a great job. You're seeing some guys really step up and kind of almost elevate their team to a level that they didn't even before the previous coach was either fired or resigned. But Oregon's a talented team, but Dan Lanning has done a really good job of bringing Bo Nix, elevating him, and creating confidence really for not just Nix but the whole team. Like they're playing. They're aggressive. They're physical, and they've got some talented players on both sides of the ball. So I think Oregon will win the Pac-12. Like I think they'll win out and win the Pac-12 again. Hot take. That's fine, but good for Lanning. Like I'm happy for all the guys. Happy for Bo Nix to have some success. I think he deserves it. He's playing really well this year. This game wasn't his best game by any stretch, but he still he played really well overall. Throughout the course of the year. So good for Oregon. I think they'll win out. I think they'll win their next 2 and finish 11-2.
You mentioned kind of the first year coach thing. So we talked a lot the offseason about kind of the 7 highest profile coaching hires at LSU, USC, Miami, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Florida, and Oregon. And Lanning was probably the least known of the 7.
Right.
We kind of threw him in there because it's Oregon and they're still a pretty big brand. Now, ironically, the one we didn't mention at all was Sonny Dykes, and he has TCU in prime position to go to the playoff. So you kind of have to by default give him the best coaching grade for all these head coaches that are in their first year at their new schools.
Right.
That said, Dan Lanning, I think a lot of people figured he might be 7th out of the 7. Clearly, that will not be the case. Oklahoma, Florida, and Miami all below him in the pecking order at this point. So just want to point out he's doing a great job. Marcus Freeman has pulled it around a little bit better at Notre Dame, and obviously Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley are doing great jobs as well. So there were some big time hires this last offseason. It was not hyperbole to say that was some big time stuff going on.
No, I like that. I think he maybe didn't get enough praise early on. He was one of the few that hadn't coached anywhere else before. Most of the others had actually had head coaching experience. There was him and a couple of others. I think Freeman and Venables were also defensive coordinators as well for first year coaches. But Yeah, no, good for him. They've set themselves up. Winning games like this, like they did against Utah on Saturday, sets you up for things down the road. Like maybe not even this year, but next year, building blocks.
Right. Okay, just the other notable scores. We won't talk about these, but I'll just kind of mention the scores that mattered. Navy beat UCF 17-14. Big oof for their New Year's Six bowl chances. Indiana beat Michigan State somehow in double overtime. They were losing 24-7 at halftime, came back and won 39-31. Kansas State beat West Virginia 48-31. Notre Dame beat Boston College 44-0. True freshman corner Benjamin Morrison 3 interceptions in this game. Louisville beat NC State 25-10. Clemson sat on Miami 40-10. Texas beat Kansas 55-14. Clearly, they were hearing the talk about how Kansas always plays them close.
Payback.
Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State 28-13. Really wasn't that close. They were up 28-0 early and held on. Didn't keep their foot on the throats, I guess. Like you would have liked to see them score a little more, but they did pull a win out. And then LSU beats UAB 41-10 in a game that people thought there's a 4% chance of something crazy happening. Didn't come to fruition.